Hi everyone, and welcome to TACoS Computer Science Day 2. Today is all about variables, so grab your microbit and grab your micro USB cable, and let's get started. Today we're going to talk about what is a variable, and then we have two activities. We're going to do one called fruit prices, which is going to be a program that counts the price of fruit. And then we're going to create a budget tracker, which is a program that subtracts the cost of fruit from a random budget. In computer programming, a variable is a name that a programmer gives to a value. For example, if we look at the mathematical expression 5 plus 6, we know the value of that expression is 11. If we wrote it as an equation instead, such as x equals 5 plus 6, we would say that x has a value of 5 plus 6, which is the same as having the value 11. So, we have given the name x to the value 11, making x a variable. In MakeCode, we can name variables nearly anything we'd like. Instead of saying x equals 5 plus 6, we could say Fred equals 5 plus 6. Now the variable Fred has the value 11. Let's go look at an example in MakeCode. Head to makecode.microbit.org and then create a new project. We'll call this project Variables. To create a new variable, we go to the Variables tab and then click Make a Variable. Go ahead and give your new variable a name. I'll call mine Fred. Now we have a variable named Fred, but it doesn't have a value. In order to give Fred a value, we're going to use the setFredToZero block and drag that into our onStart block. We can change the variable we're setting by using this dropdown, and we can change the value by changing this number here. Let's try that now. Why don't we set Fred to a few different values and then display Fred's new value on the virtual microbit. In order to show Fred's value on the microbit's LEDs, we need to drag a ShowNumber0 block from the Basic tab. Go ahead and grab that block and put it right underneath your setFredToZero block. Now, your virtual microbit should be showing a 0, but we don't want it to actually show 0, we want it to show Fred's value. So go back into the Variables tab and drag out this Fred block and put it into your ShowNumber block. Now our ShowNumber block is going to show Fred's value. So go ahead and change Fred's value and watch the virtual microbit change with it. So I set a 3 and the microbit says 3. If I set 60, the microbit will say 60. Great. That seems to be working wonderfully. So now we're going to put our new knowledge of variables to the test. Go ahead and click on the Home button in the top left part of the screen and create a new project called Fruit. In our Fruit Prices activity today, we're going to use the A and B buttons and the OnShake tool in our microbit to make a simple price counter for fruit. We could use the price counter to calculate how much we're spending at the grocery store. Our goal is for the microbit to display the number 0 when it starts up and then keep track of how much money we're spending as we buy fruit. For this activity, let's say an apple is $1, a banana is $2, and an orange is $3. Then we can press A to add an apple to our cart, B to add a banana, and A and B together to add an orange. Finally, we should have a way to restart our cost variable in case we accidentally add the wrong fruit. We can do that by resetting our cost to $0 when we shake our microbit. Our activity today has 7 steps. First, we're going to create a variable, then we're going to set the variable to its initial value, we're going to add an apple when we push A, a banana for B, an orange on A and B together, and then reset the cost variable with the OnShake tool. At the end, we're going to flash our microbit. Step 1. Create a variable. The first thing we need to do is create a variable to hold the value of our current cost. Click on the Variable tab to make a new variable. You can name your variable whatever you like, but it's always a good idea to use descriptive names to describe what your variable is doing. In this case, our variable is holding the value of our current cost, so I'm going to call my variable cost. Step 2. Set the variable to its initial value. In our goal, we said that we want the cost to start at 0. So inside the onStart block, we're going to set our new variable to 0 and then show that variable on the screen just like we did earlier. So just like before, we're going to take our set variable to and put it in the onStart block. And then we need to go into the basic tab and do show number 0 underneath that. And then back in the variables tab, we need to drag our cost variable into our show number block. Just like before, if you change this number, it should change in your virtual microbit. You can try that out, but make sure you go back to 0 when you're finished. Step 3. Add an apple when we push A. Now let's work on getting our variable to increase by $1 when we push A to add an apple. Look at the Input tab on the left and drag an On button A pressed block into the editor. We have to get a little tricky now because we want to set the value of our variable to be 1 higher than it was before, so we're going to need to do some math. First, let's drag a set variable 0 block into the editor and place it inside our On button A pressed block. We don't want to set our variable to 0 though, so we need to replace the 0 with the correct block to increase our variable by 1. Go into the Math tab and select the 0 plus 0 block. Drag it into our set variable to 0 block. Now we are setting our variable to the value of a math expression. Unfortunately, this one isn't very useful because 0 plus 0 is always going to be 0. Luckily, we can use the value of a variable in our expression. So go ahead and go into the Variables tab and drag that variable out. Remember, we want to add 1 to our variable, so our math equation could look similar to cost equals cost plus 1. Go ahead and change this 0 to a 1. Now all that's left to do is to make sure we show the new value of our variable on the screen. Drag a show number block from the basic tab underneath the set variable to variable plus 1 block. Then replace the 0 with your variable. Let's test out our new code by pressing the A button on the virtual microbit. The virtual microbit will now display a number that goes up by the cost of an apple, $1, every time you push the A button. Step 4. Add a banana when we push B. This next step is really simple. We want to do the same thing we did earlier, except this time we want to add 2 to our variable when we push the B button. Go ahead and drag all of the necessary blocks into the editor to make that happen. You should end up with blocks that look similar to this. It should say On button B pressed, set cost to cost plus 2, and then show number cost. Step 5. Add an orange when we push A and B at the same time. Now we need to add our last fruit to the cost. It should be the same as the last 2 steps, but this time we want to set cost to cost plus 3, and we want it to happen when the A and B button are pressed together. If you want to be really nifty, you can right-click on one of your already built blocks of code, and then click Duplicate, and then change the necessary items. So we want On button A plus B, set cost to cost plus 3. Step 6. Reset the cost variable when we shake the microbit. Now that we have a way to add all of our fruit into our basket, we need a way to get it out, just in case we push the wrong button or if we want to start over. To do that, let's make our variable go back to 0 when we shake the microbit. Go to the Input tab and drag an onShake block into your editor. Then go to the Variables tab and grab that Set Cost to 0 block and put it in the onShake block. That'll do the trick. Now all we need to do is add a show number block and add our variable to it. As always, let's test our code to make sure it works. Go ahead and click the A button, make sure it goes up by 1. Click the B button, make sure it goes up by 2. And the A and B button, it should go up by 3. Perfect. And then there's this new shake button. We can click that, and it should reset to 0. Let's try this out with a real-world example. Let's say we have 3 apples, 1 banana, and 2 oranges. Let's figure out how much that should cost, and then we'll do it in our virtual microbit and make sure that the cost variable matches. So for 3 apples, 1 apple is $1, plus another is $2, the third makes 3. A banana costs $2, 3 plus 2 is 5, and then the 2 oranges each cost $3, so 5 plus 3 is 8, and 8 plus 3 is 11. Let's test that example in our virtual microbit. We said we had 3 apples, so I'll push the A button 3 times. 1 banana, so the B button once. And 2 oranges, so A plus B 2 times. It looks like everything is working great. Our virtual microbit is behaving the way we expect it to, which leaves just one more thing. Step 7. Let's flash our microbit. Congratulations! You have made a price counter for fruit. Got apple on A, banana on B, and orange on A and B, and then shake to reset. Let's move on to the second activity. For our second activity, we're going to make a budget tracker. What we're going to do is we're going to program our microbit to subtract the cost of our 3 fruits from a random budget between $10 and $15. What we want to do with this project is determine how many fruits we can buy with a given budget. Make sure you start with a brand new project. Make sure that your program starts with a random budget between $10 and $15 showing on your microbit when it starts up. And then you want your program to subtract, instead of adding like we did in the last project, $1 for A, $2 for B, and $3 for A and B. And similar to our last project, you want a way to restart your program. So on shake, make sure that your variable resets to a new random budget. You're going to do this second activity on your own as a bit of a challenge to see what you've learned today. So get into MakeCode, do what you can, but we also have a couple hints for you. Make sure you create a variable to hold your random budget. There's a block in the Math tab that picks a random number within a range. That'll be super helpful in this project. Don't forget to display your variable after it's assigned a random number. And the last hint is, you can use steps from the previous activity, but remember we're subtracting now rather than adding. If you get stuck, head on over to our website and go to day 2. You should be following along here with the video, but in case you didn't, go ahead and scroll all the way down to the second activity here. And here we've got a link to a possible solution. Definitely try your best to get it done before you look at the solution. Of course, everyone needs a little help sometimes, so don't feel bad if you need to peek. And if you need even more help than that, stick around to the end of the video. I'll give a quick walkthrough of this second activity. Congratulations, that's all I have for you. You have finished day 2. Today we learned that a variable is a name for a value, and we did 2 activities, the fruit prices activity and the budget tracker. If you need more help with that budget tracker, go ahead and stick around. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow for day 3, which is Boolean expressions and control flow. Here is a quick walkthrough of our budget tracker activity. So first I'm going to go to New Project and I'll call it Budget Tracker. When that loads, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new variable called Budget. Then I'm going to set budget to 0 in the onStart block. Remember that for this activity, we don't actually want budget to start at 0. Instead, we want it to start at a random number between 10 and 15. That's where that math block I talked about comes in handy. So go into the Math tab and scroll down until you see Pick Random 0 to 10. Grab that and put it into your Set Budget block. Now, we don't want it to set a budget between $0 and $10. Instead, we want it to be between 10 and 15. So change this 0 to a 10 and change the 10 to a 15. The next thing we're going to need to do is show our budget on start. So go into the Basic tab, grab the Show Number block, and place it underneath your Set Budget block. We don't want to show 0, we want to show our variable. So go into the Variables tab, grab that budget variable, and plug it into the Show Number block. Now we need the microbit to subtract 1 when we push A to add an apple to our bag, subtract 2 when we push B, and subtract 3 when we push A and B together. So let's start with the A button. Go into the Input tab, grab an On button A pressed block, and then we'll go into the Variables tab and grab a Set Budget to 0 block like we did in the previous activity. Now in the last activity, we set our budget to budget plus 1. This time we want to subtract, so go into the Math tab and click 0 minus 0, grab that and put it into our Set Budget block. And then we want to make sure that we're setting budget to budget minus 1. We'll need to show our new budget on the screen, so go into the Basic tab, grab your Show Number block, and show the budget. We'll need to do the same thing with our On button B pressed block, so I am going to right-click on this block and duplicate it. I'll drag it over here, change this drop down to a B, and instead of subtracting 1, we need to subtract 2. And then I'm going to do that again for the A and B buttons pressed together. I'll duplicate that. I'll change this drop down to A plus B. And then for this one, we'll set budget to budget minus 3. The only thing we have left to do is reset the program on Shake. So we'll go into our input, grab the On Shake block, and then we're going to go into the Variables tab and grab our Set Budget to 0 block. Now, again, we don't actually want to set our budget to 0. Instead, we want to set our budget to pick a random number from 10 to 15. So we'll go ahead and go back into the Math tab and grab that block again. Change it from 10 to 15. And the last thing that we need to do, this is so easy to forget, we need to show our number. We don't want to show 0, we want to show our budget variable. That's it. Now go ahead and re-download your code, and then plug your microbit back in. Go to your Downloads folder, open your microbit, and drag the new hex file onto your microbit. Great, and then when it's done, you can give it a shake. It'll give you a number, 14, okay. So I push A, it should subtract by 1, 2, 13. And then B should subtract by 2. Cool, yep, we've got 11. And then A and B should subtract 3 and give us 8. Great. Oh, that rhymed. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope this was helpful. Congratulations on finishing day 2, and we'll see you tomorrow.